Hi, good evening. Welcome to MUWSC Podcast number 71. He's braving it again, joining me and taking his chances. Andy, how you doing? Good to have you back, and hopefully without any Wi-Fi dropouts for me this time.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
ready to step in. Yeah, don't you
Okay.
worry. You've got a backup right here.
Perfect. If I just want to go and make a cup of tea, Andy's in charge. Zoe, thanks for joining us. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Just to warn you, you and Andy will be co-hosting at some stage if I get my dropout again. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed we don't. So this evening we're going to Andy and Zoe both going to talk about their little side projects, and we're also going to look ahead to the last 4 games of the calendar year. And I'm also going to be telling you all why you should join in with the bargain of the year and jump on the Barmy bus to Brighton for £20. I'll tell you about that later. So good evening, Mark. Good evening, John. And good afternoon to Ian, who for some reason thinks it's absolutely acceptable to take a holiday during the season. It's not, Ian. Andy, start us off. Barmy article, issue 3. Okay.
Issue 3. We made it to issue 3. It's issue 3 went on sale. The City game, that wonderful event where we beat City. Let's rejoice in that for a moment first. It's going really well. We've got Zoe writing regularly for it. We've got Matt writing regularly for it, and we're getting more and more people who are discovering it and interested in putting their own things in. We had some good diverse content in issue 3. It's growing, and we want it to carry on growing. We want anybody that's got an opinion, get forward, get in touch, and write for it. And artwork as well. If you haven't seen it, the centerpiece of issue 3 is a spectacle, bringing fans together from all over the world into the stands in cartoon form.
Absolutely, I'll vouch
Not
for
to
that.
be missed.
There you go. Mark says it's a brilliant read and he's looking forward to the next issue. So this is one of those things, Andy, where you also want people to contribute. It's not just you with going off on your own tangent. This is about people's thoughts. And we've talked in the past about fanzine culture. We've talked a little bit about the importance of it and trying to bring it into the women's game. And you're a bit of a trailblazer in the women's game, I think it's fair to say. So you're also saying to people, come along, get on board, get involved. That's the message to everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's not. It's even if I don't agree with what you say, as long as it is family friendly, I will print it. It's all the only requirement is it's about United Women. It's constructive. If it's criticism, it's constructive. And just if you're a United fan, let us know what you've got to say. You're not limited to the 280 characters that Twitter gives you, and you won't get instant replies giving you abuse either. You'll get to write down what you think, see it in print, tell all your friends to go and buy it because you're in it, and all are welcome.
Fantastic. And if anybody wants to get hold of a copy, Andy, how do they do that?
If you go to LSV on match days, not just any day, I'm not outside all the time, but on match days from approximately an hour before kickoff until 15 to 30 minutes before kickoff, I'll usually be stood across from the statue outside the main stand, across the road because security are watching me. And you can get it in person there. It's £1.50. It may go up in future because it's tight this month. This issue 3 was tight. Costs have gone up, but we've managed to get it out regardless. And you can also get it online. You can see my Twitter handle on my little screen, SL8R7. And in my Twitter bio is a link to a Big Cartel website, and that's where you can order it. You can order it in print. We have recently made it available to order in PDF as well. So if you're scattered around the world and postage would cost more than the fanzine itself, you can buy it in PDF and get it emailed straight to you.
So there is no excuse.
No excuse.
No excuse for people not to buy a copy, not to get hold of a copy. So they can either buy it on a match day from you physically, or they can go to you via Twitter, get a copy sent to them, or if they are not even if they're abroad, if they just don't want to pay for the postage, they can still get a PDF copy. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
and the more the merrier in terms of.
Yeah, there are a couple of things like the cutout cards, cutout collectible cards. You'd miss out on that a little bit. If you want to do Mark's dot to dot from issue 3, you'd have to print your PDF off. You know, everybody loves a dot to dot. I was amazed when he sent that over for issue 3. I loved it. I've done it.
This is a surprise. I didn't know there was one, and I now want to know why I haven't at least been given it an advance copy of this. I'm feeling quite cheated. Mark, I'd like to know, where's my advance copy of the dot to dot?
It's in issue 3. It's not advance anymore.
Yeah, but I think there are certain privileges I should be afforded in life.
Mark bought 6. Have you not got one of them?
Having a word with them. Talking of privileges and taking advantage of a situation, we did address the fact that Ian's on holiday. He says it's an international break for part of the team. Hence, he took an international break. Not convinced by that. Jake, very good evening. Oh, there's a noise upstairs. Mark, are you telling me where my dot to dot is?
Yes.
Where is it? Where's my dot to dot? Oh, it's like live and interactive completely. Zoe, Andy mentioned that you write some articles for him. I feel like there's a prop coming in a minute. Andy, do you remember Grange Hill with a fork? The start of Grange Hill with the fork coming in?
I remember Grange Hill.
There you go. Kids Corner. I think that's a bit advanced for me. My name is... Right, no excuses. And if anybody's wondering... That's what issue 3 looks like. Zoe, Andy mentioned that you've done some writing for him, but you also do some writing for some other things, don't you? So your love of United has taken you to doing different activities as well. Just give us a little idea of what else it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I write for the People's Person as well as the Buy Me article, and love doing both of them. The People's Person, I started off sort of writing mainly about the women. I'm still doing that, but I've also got involved with writing about the men's team as well, and doing a lot of the match reports for them as well as the women's side. So yeah, really enjoying my writing, and really enjoying. I mean, it's good for me. I said this yesterday. Somebody asked me about it, and I said it's good for my health, because normally at this moment in time I get very stressed watching United, and when you have to write about it, you're too busy, trying to write about it and trying to, get to the analytics side of it, and you don't have time to stress. So it's good for my health, I think.
Good. You're enjoying it, and I know I've read some of your stuff, and it's great. So I think, yeah, it's good for your health, but it's also really good for the people that are reading it. So good for you. And nice that you're actually working together on things as well, you see, bringing the world together, bringing the world of United. And actually, I suppose that's one of those things that for some people, they just want to watch games. There are things that people can do away from just watching games. And I know that for us as the supporters club, we're always willing for people to come along and join us and help out, but there's lots of other things that are going on as well. So there's things that are out there for people. Good evening, Karen, and good evening to Max. Right, so apologies for my phone, which is making a couple of noises this evening. We've got 4 games left of the calendar year, and it's a calendar year that started with us locked out of grounds. So in some ways, let's be grateful we're at games. But Andy, is it safe to say they've not always been the easiest watch?
It is. I think it depends who you're talking to on how you process the form, because personally I've been spoiled by United. My time watching United was right into the men's team's glory years and straight through the whole dominating the Premier League era. And I think because I've been through that and then the years following Fergie's retirement, I think I do have a bit of perspective and can be quite philosophical about it. And I find it interesting watching for signs of progress. And I think we started the season where we were beating teams that we should be beating. We weren't convincing, but we were beating the teams we should beat, which wasn't necessarily something we were doing the second half of last season. Then we got battered by Chelsea, which let's move on from that. And then we had a couple of draws, which were probably more disappointing than that 6-1 defeat, because we should have been winning the games. We should have been comfortable, and we weren't progressive enough. We weren't adventurous enough, and we succumbed to silly mistakes at the end. But then along comes the City game, and we beat City at LSV. We play wide. And then Arsenal, we've got beat against Arsenal. But funnily enough, I think from those two games, despite one being a loss, I think those two games have given us quite a bit of promise for the coming run of fixtures. Because if we play like we did in the first half against Arsenal, we'll beat most teams.
Andy, I think I said to you as we were leaving the ground, that first half was some of the best football we've played for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, okay, football's a 90-minute game, but that performance, certainly when you think of the way we played against Arsenal at their place last year, that was a complete shift. Okay, yes, we beat Arsenal at our place last year, but Arsenal were a very different team at that point in the season to the one that we then played later in the season. But in terms of where we were in our confidence, that the Spurs and the Everton games have really pegged us back a bit. Zoe, do you find writing, you watch games with a different perspective? Because I know Ian's in the chat. He says he'll hopefully be back for the Leicester game. Do you? And I often say to Ian, can he concentrate on a game if he's thinking about, if he does the Twitter? So if he does Twitter, can he think about what's going on? Do you find when you're watching a game, you're thinking of your article less, and does that change how you see the game? So whereas we look at it in terms of performance, are you thinking in terms of what am I going to write about this?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because when you're at games, as opposed to, sometimes I'll do my match report whilst watching it on telly if I can't get there. When you're actually at games, sometimes you get a bit caught up in the moment and you lose yourself in. And it's like before I was writing about it. It's just I'm a fan cheering on my team and singing on my team, But for the most part, I'm thinking about, right, what am I going to comment on here? Because it doesn't matter whether it's a boring 0-0 game. I've still got to write about it, and I've got to write a half decent report. And there's still, there's a good 90 minutes there, and something's always happening. But yeah, I think I am looking for things, and it's good because whilst I'm looking for things, I'm actually learning more about the game. Like, obviously, I've been a football fan all my life, and I think I know a lot about it, but actually since writing about it and since really scrutinizing what's going on the pitch, things like tactics and formation, I'm learning a lot more about that and picking up on things, our style of play, more than I would have done as just watching as a fan. So yeah, I think I do think about it, and I'm there to, sort of typing notes up on my phone, and then my phone's auto correcting everything I say, and then I have no idea what I meant when I get home. But yeah.
Just going back to the Arsenal game. First half was brilliant. Pace was spot on, not giving Arsenal time to get on ball. So what were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I feel like I missed this a little bit because I was very, very critical of them in that first half. So everybody else was saying what a great performance it was, and I actually picked up on a number of the mistakes that we made, probably more than the good performance that we had, to be honest with you. I remember there was just a few nervy moments that we had at the back, which I think is a problem that we have quite regularly. I'm not going to, sort of say any names or anything, but there was just a few mistakes that I thought could have really cost us. when I do look back on it, on the whole, yeah, that first half was promising. We did manage to keep hold of the ball a lot better than in some games that we've had recently. So yeah, but I do feel like I perhaps had a bit more of a negative view of it than a lot of the other fans in the ground.
Okay. So coming off that, Ian said it. 4 games left. 12 out of 12 for him. Zoe, what do you think? 4 games left this year, calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on them? We've got Leicester first up.
Uh-huh.
And we've got Brighton away, I think, is the one we'd all say is the one that could really challenge us the most, certainly the way they're going this year. Everton away, and then I want to say Villa at home. Villa at home? Villa at home. 12 out of 12 for you? Or is Ian being a little bit too excitable?
I think he is, yeah. I think I don't want to sound pessimistic. I'm not usually this pessimistic, but we should be getting we should be getting a win against Leicester. They've I don't think they've won a game yet since they got promoted. That being said, they tripped us up.
They got no points, Zoe. They got nada.
Not even a draw, no. So I'm worried that we'll be, the bogey team that loses to Leicester or something. But yeah, that's very pessimistic. But no, we should be winning that one. But I always think about our ex-players and how they sometimes come back to haunt us. And of course, they've got Jess Sigsworth, who I actually am a big fan of. I do highly rate her, and so I won't be surprised if she comes back to haunt us. But yeah, that's one that we should be winning. Everton and Brighton, like you say, they're both 2 games that I'm slightly wary of. I think we'll definitely get draws in them. It'd be nice to get the wins. And then Villa again. Yeah, we should be beating Villa. So yeah, I might be too pessimistic. I hope Ian's right, but yeah, I'm not overly confident.
Okay. Couple of comments. Fiona says should be going for 12 out of 12 because he's getting a draw against Everton again. Mark, win both league games is a must, so that's Brighton and Villa. As for the Conti games, beat Leicester and see how things are for the Everton game. Okay, doesn't really matter for the Conti game because they'll change the rules partway through the competition. Karen says all are must wins if we're looking to challenge, but we've said this before, absolutely. Good evening, Norway. 12 out of 12. It feels like I've just done a bit of Eurovision there. 12 out of 12 for Torren as well, but Mark Skinner needs to play Vilda in midfield, just saying. Yeah, absolutely. Andy, 12 out of 12? 10 out of 12?
I don't see why we couldn't get 12 out of 12. Okay. Like I said, if we play like we did against Arsenal, I think we're capable of troubling every team, of dominating most teams.
Yeah.
I think part of it is going to be, now Skinner talked about depth against Arsenal. We know that we are threadbare in certain areas of the pitch. I think he had a point, but also we have players that he's not using. And not even just in midfield. We have 6 good midfielders.
Yeah.
If you count Toon as a midfielder, more number 10, Staniforth, midfield number 10. You've got Vilda Boarisa, you've got Jackie Gronin, and then you've got Hayley Ladd and Katie Zellum as, if you want to call her a 6. Skinner seems to think of her as a 6, so I guess we'd better run with that for now. But that's a depth in midfield. Now, we haven't got a lot of strikers, but we've got a lot of forwards. Arsenal game was screaming out for Fuso and Carrie Jones early in the second half. Fuso scored in 2 games that she's played. She'd be raring to go. It'd be pace, get at them down the wings. He was using the wings. He was allowing the players to play wide. If he'd have put them both on earlier, I think we'd have troubled them. Not saying we'd have come back and won, but I think we'd have troubled them a bit more. So I get his point that we need to bolster the squad in certain areas, but if I'm spending the money, I'm going to think, if you're not using depth in other areas, why should I give you depth elsewhere?
Now, this is part of the conversation I remember having myself actually after the game when someone had said, these comments have come out, and I think my response, Shane, I think I said it to you, Shane, by the way, says that Brighton worries him. I think that's just because Ian lives near the ground. But I think I said to Shane that you can't complain about not having the depth if you're not using it. And then Karen agrees with Torren, who says it's time for Vilda Boarisa. Absolutely. Mark then goes on to say he's been impressed with Vilda, needs more game time though. Absolutely. Fiona's expecting to see some rotation, probably most likely for the Leicester game in terms of it's a cup get. Well, we'll come on to that actually about what we're prioritising. Mark then says he wants to see more of Fuso. When she's played, she has been good. Well, don't know what your problem is, Ian. If we're prioritising, there's 2 cup games, 2 league games. Are we prioritising one or the other, Zoe?
I mean, I'd actually like to. This is probably an unpopular opinion. I'd like to prioritise the cup games, to be honest with you. I think the league is going to be tight this year. I'm not saying that we should give up on it by any means. I mean, I said right at the start of the season, with a new manager, I don't think we'll get 4th or higher, just because there was a lot of players leaving and a new manager coming in, and it was going to take time to adjust and to adapt. And so I always saw us having these sort of little blips along the way, and that's what I sort of see. The draws against Tottenham and Everton being just little blips whilst we're sort of adjusting. And so I don't think that we're going to get top 4, let alone top 3 this season. So I'd like to see if we can get a cup run going and try and get out of that group and do something special. And after that first game where we got a draw and then obviously we won the penalty shootout, I thought we were still going to have a big ask. But after seeing us beat City, I think we could throw something at that Conti Cup and give it a go.
Okay. Fiona says she's been disappointed with some players out of possession in terms of defensive positioning. Could be down to not enough minutes under new tactics. True. Ian says the team with rotation that beat City should be able to beat Leicester. Absolutely. Although Mark then says best starting 11 against Leicester, Brighton and Villa rotate for the Everton game. And much like you, Zoe, well, like all of us, who wants a cup run. Andy, do we need to prioritise? Or are these 4 games where we just say, you know what, there's only 1 midweek in there, let's go for it?
I think when you look at the squad, aside from the defence, even rotation isn't necessarily playing a weakened team. If you've got, I would say, if we accept, I don't want to, but if we accept Katie as a defensive midfielder, then you've got Katie or Hayley Ladd. You've got Jackie or Vilda Boarisa in the middle of the midfield. And you've got Staniforth or Toon as a number 10. I don't think that there are preferred options, but I think in probably all 3 of those positions, you're not worried whichever player is in there. So I think rotation isn't a case of rest some players and make do with others. I think whoever you play in midfield is good enough. If you give them the right balance. I mean, I was surprised against, I think it was Arsenal, where Toon and Staniforth both started. And that surprised me because I thought that was maybe a bit too adventurous. But they showed great discipline in the defensive shape. So I think in midfield, you don't need to prioritise. I think with your forwards, we've only really got 2 wingers with Kirsty and Galton. But then the way Fuso plays, you could play Fuso out wide, and then you get what Skinner wants of cutting inside and being a threat. I like the idea of Russo wide because one of her biggest strengths is when she gets on the ball and runs with it, and you can't do that as a number 9. You've got Martha Thomas to play up top. Get Russo on the ball where the action is and get her running at defenders. And then Carrie Jones as well. What's really impressed me about Carrie Jones is she's not coming in trying desperately to impress. She's coming in and doing the right job. Because
Mhm.
often you get people trying too hard to impress and trying, overdoing it and fumbling around a bit. But she's so composed. She's where she should be, and she's got the energy. So I think there is a depth short of strikers, but I think we're quite rich with forwards.
It's a
And
great
I think
point.
we've got players who can score.
Great point you make about Carrie Jones, actually. Absolutely. There's an assuredness about her.
Yeah.
And yeah, and obviously she signed her first pro contract now, so that will hopefully give her more confidence if she needed it. But some of the reaction to that news from people around the club, from a teammate, was really positive in as much as, obviously it's not going to be negative, but the things they were saying about her gave me the impression that they see something on the training field. They're seeing something, and they know that this girl's got talent. Yeah, good point though. She's not trying. She doesn't look like she's grasping at anything. She's quite assured in herself. Torrance says we should have Maria and Vilda rested for Sunday's game because they had to stay an extra day in Armenia because the game got stopped by fog yesterday. Not having that. The Everton game is midweek between Brighton and Villa, so that's the only reason for rotation. Yeah, and this is similar to what Mark Skinner said, must be a Mark thing, about 3 games in a week he was struggling with. Fiona, I think rotation impacts the style of play rather than the overall quality of the team. Okay, good point. And she wants to see Carrie starting on Sunday. She deserves it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those. If we're not going to play Carrie Jones on Sunday, when are we going to play her?
Mm-hmm.
So she started against Durham, impressed. Why not give her a go against Leicester? The Leicester game, I think we're all looking at it, and maybe I'm wrong here. Zoe, tell me if I'm wrong. Are we looking at that as perhaps one of the easier fixtures of this run of 4 games? I won't say the easiest. Some may say that. But is there a sense that we're almost, right, let's just do it, get it over and done with, move on to Brighton?
Yeah, I think so. It's easy to do that with the form that they've been in this season. I.e., like you say, they've lost every game. But I think we need to be wary of not to just assume that it's won before we've played it, basically, because I think they'll come out fighting because they obviously don't want to be where they are right now. And so I think they'll come out with a fight, and they also know that they have beat us before, at the end of the last season. So I think we need to be careful not to assume that's done, that's in the bag. But we've got the talent, we've got the squad to get the job done. But what I'd like to see is not us sort of sit back. I feel like we have done in some games where we've got the 1-0 and we think that's done. So I just hope that the team doesn't feel like that, and they try and go on and push on and get a better result.
Mark says, to an extent, with the current form of Leicester, you understand why people have already looked past the game. But new manager bounce back, which often happens. But this is a cup game. And bearing in mind where they are in the league, are they saying, you know what, we're just going to go for a run, we're going to see where we go, wherever it takes us? Or, Andy, if you're a Leicester fan, are you thinking to yourself now, forget the cup, we need to stay in this league. We need to prioritise and do what they did against us a couple of seasons ago and just chuck the kids out?
There's potential for that. How far away are they? And I know that there's only 5 points between 3rd and 10th. How far behind?
Well, they have zilch. They have zilch in the league right now.
What are 11th place on?
Somebody's going to give me the stats on that. Whilst they do that, Shane, get us the stats. Mark says he'd like to see Millie play on Sunday. Yeah, if she's got some time in her. And he corrects me and says the new manager doesn't start till Monday. Yeah, but come on. They're going to have an influence, aren't they? It's like
playing to impress that new manager.
Yeah, exactly. Fiona says Birmingham have got a point. So they're immediately above Leicester, I assume. It's Leicester aren't aren't staying in the league unless something shifts very quickly, either to them or one of the other teams.
Mhm.
See, I think looking at us, it is a game that many teams could be complacent in.
Mhm.
But I think Skinner's reaction to that Everton game has knocked any potential complacency out of him. The Spurs game frustrated us as fans, but
Yeah.
Skinner seemed to think we were, well, let's say it, comfortable. But I think the Everton game really kicked him. His reaction to that mistake at the end, and probably what he saw as a reaction from the fans, that it wasn't just a case of, well, what a mistake by Mary, that's unfortunate, it ruined the whole performance. The performance left us vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably the reaction of the fans that made him think we need to be more adventurous. And the result, coupled with the reaction, saw a change in approach, saw us be more progressive. Now, we haven't been 1-0 up since then. We've been 2-1 up against City and held on to it. I think that might knock any chances out of complacency out of him. I think he'll be drilling the players to say, look, every match counts. Make it count.
Okay. Shane says it can be a struggle when cup games are off the back of an international break. Shouldn't need rotation, but then it's almost traditional. Moving beyond the Leicester game, we've got Brighton away. And Brighton have started the season well, can be unpredictable. And I don't know whether they're going to be able to field either of the geese this year. But Zoe, your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think that is going to be. I know I've been very negative about Leicester and telling everyone not to.
Come on, let's get something positive going.
I think with Brighton, I think we'll step up to the challenge. As you say, and as Shane said, it is a worry, that one. It is, and that's probably the game that I'm most worried about. Possibly Everton, but only Everton because of the last result that we got.
Because it's Everton.
Yeah, and it might not even go ahead. So, we don't need to think about that one yet. So Brighton's probably the one that I'd be most nervous about. But then, I think I know this is something that we're going to talk about later, but I think they're going to step it up because they know what an effort we're all going to go to be there and to give them that extra person on the pitch.
Why, Zoe? You've allowed me to very neatly segue into my offer to everybody. Talking of going to Brighton, Andy, I know you're already booked on, but we are in a position to be able to offer subsidised coach travel to Brighton. I know it's a hellishly long journey, and I know that the thought of actually getting on a bus that leaves the Old Trafford area at 6 a.m. isn't a great deal, but it's 20 quid, and it's a chance to stick your Santa hat on, go to an away game, go and have a good laugh with everybody, and go and watch the game, obviously, but it's 20 quid. Do I need to keep saying it? 20 quid. Yeah, I know it's an early start, but you guys have done away games. You can't beat them, can you?
Not at all.
No.
And I think what I would say is two points, actually. One is, even if you don't want to watch the game, 20 quid return to Brighton, go and do some shopping.
Well,
if you want to do some shopping, get on the coach.
You say that, but it's Crawley. It's not proper Brighton. So
let's not bother them with details. Get them on the coach.
Okay, yeah, come to Brighton. If we beat Brighton, we go level on points with them. Okay. Karen says, get on the bus. Ian tells us all it's a horrendous journey. Cheers, Ian. Mark says, get on the bus. Karen says, get on the bus. Wish we could be there. Mark wants to know, how much is it? Well, Mark, it's funny you ask. The bus is £20. Normally, our away trips are £30 each. But this one, first time ever on a coach. Come and make history with us. Come on. We'll even get the selection boxes out and we'll get some chocolates going up and down the coach. Come on. Shane, early starts are what aways are all about. Absolutely. Although Fiona says if you want to be a little bit more, a little bit more restrained, you can bring some headphones and have a nap. Absolutely. Here's one for you, Andy. If the game's not for you, but you do fancy a £20 trip to Crawley, visit the Applesauce Museum. I believe that's in Crawley. Yeah, Ian, maybe you could help us out with some directions to it. But on a serious note, if anybody is tempted, by all means, drop us a DM. If you're on Twitter or on Instagram, just get in touch with us and just say, I believe you're running a bus to Brighton. How much is it? What time do you leave? In all seriousness, like Jake says, don't let the thought of the Applesauce Museum put you off. Come and join us. Andy, are you going to have your Santa hat on?
I don't believe I've got a Santa hat.
That needs fixing. Right.
But what I will say about people worried about the length of the journey, what you need for a long journey like that is some reading materials.
Andy, what could they possibly be reading on the 4.5 hour or so journey to Crawley?
Well, for a mere £4.50 extra, you could get all 3 issues of the Barmy article.
As in, like this one here?
That very one. And 2 others. I will have copies with me on that journey, so if you're going on the coach and you haven't got your copies, they will be available en route.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as Fiona says, if it's your first time on the bus, we aren't scary. Karen, I know you've been in the chat. If you are watching, it's Karen's first trip with us on a bus. And hopefully, I think she's really looking forward to it. So yeah, there are some people that will be on their first trip with us. But yeah, come and give it a go. Honestly, if you've ever thought about, fancy doing an away day, come and do it in style with us. Ian says the museum, I believe this is the 10-minute walk. From where, Ian? From where? From the ground? From my house? Ian, you're in Canada at the moment. Karen does say here she's looking forward to it. Yeah, and we're looking forward to having you on the bus. We're doing a Midlands pickup in case anybody goes, I don't live near Old Trafford. I don't really live in Manchester. There is a pickup in the Midlands as organised by Karen and Shane. So the Brighton game. Thank you for allowing me to segue into that one, Zoe. Andy, your thoughts on it, because it stands out of these last 4 games like the one that could trouble us the most.
It does, and I think that's important because, like I said before, the last 2 games, even though one of them was a loss, have looked a bit more promising in our approach. You look at those 2 draws, and if we win them, which we should, it's not the usual, well, if you turn that into this and if you turn this into that, you're in this position in the league, because those are games that we really should have won. We played pretty bad and lost in the last minute of both. So if we play like we can, like we're perfectly capable of, we've got 4 points there, and we're a point above Brighton, and we're in 3rd place. That's a big difference. Now, you look at those teams we've got. I do have another tab open with the league table.
Oh.
You've got Brighton on 15, Spurs on 14, West Ham level with us on 12. We're very close to those teams, and that's with 4 big points dropped.
Yeah.
So you look at how we should be playing and how closer to how we played in the last 2 games, and we are the team that are holding that 3rd place spot. We're the team that other teams are looking at thinking that's our challenge in this run of games. So I think we're on the right track to play the right way to deal with those teams, including Brighton.
I think you could almost make a point. You could almost make it's not just the Everton and the Spurs game. Something still rankles with me about the City game.
Yeah. Not as much, because that was it was a tougher fight than it should have been when they went down to 10. But it being a derby, it being against 10 players, because some say it's more difficult playing against 10. Now, breaking a team of 10 down, I accept that. Letting a team of 10 score 2, not so much. I was disappointed in that part of that game.
Yeah. And actually, I think if we look at the cup game, I think the spirit and the way that we came back from losing that goal early to win that game 2-1, I think said a hell of a lot about the character in the team. Torrance says she can confirm the away travel bunch are great. And Ian, he's off for his afternoon plans. Don't know what that is. Probably involves some apple sauce. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody. Hopefully he'll see those of us that are at the game on Sunday, subject to getting a PCR result back. Ian, take care and safe journey home, and hope to see you soon. Zoe, I don't want to talk solely about Brighton, but the start they've had to the season, they are almost one of the benchmark teams for us if we want to be looking at a similar, if not better, league position than last year, surely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the, I don't like this term, but I'm going to use it anyway, one of the sort of defining games of the season for us. Because of, how well they've started. And again, that's sort of been like a few years in the making, really. That's a progression that's happened. And at the same time, it has sort of surprised us all as well. It's something that's been talked about, and now now it's been done. And so I think, like you say, if we beat them, we go into third, which has always sort of been the plan. Even when Casey was here, it was all about trying to get into the top three, trying to get Champions League and things. Something that as I said, I thought was out of reach this season. If we can, Brighton have sort of laid down the gauntlet for the rest of the league, and if we can show that we can match them or better them, then we could have a really strong season. I think it'll also show whether, those lessons have been learnt from the Tottenham and Everton games. I know, like Andy said, we've shown promise in the games since. We've shown that we've fixed some of those mistakes, even with a loss against Arsenal. I think that'll be the game that shows whether we are progressing in the right way, or whether we are still sort of susceptible to those errors. So yeah, I think it'll be quite an important game, if not the most important game of our season.
I think it's a good point about being season defining, in as much as the games we would look at as difficult games, certainly the top three from last year, we've played them all now at home. So yeah. Reading, obviously first game of the season. We know that obviously last year it didn't go well against them at our place. So yeah, there's understandable reasons for thinking this is going to be a big game. But I'm really aware of the time, and I'm also aware of the fact that we have another 2 games after that. And I don't want to ignore those, because one of them's really, really amazing trip back to Wally Hall Park, as a friend of mine tells me it's called by the locals. Andy, Everton, what do you make of it? Cup game, admittedly, but Everton.
I think if, as it appears, we have learned from that game and the Spurs game, we should be beating them comfortably. And I don't even think it's a case of stamping out the silly mistakes. I think it's more a case of we are capable, if we play more progressively, that a silly mistake will only be a consolation goal. We shouldn't be looking at 1-0 and sitting on it. Our best attributes are in attack, and we should be looking to score goals, not snatch 1-0 wins. So I think with that mindset, we are more than capable of putting a few goals past them. And then a silly mistake, where we don't want to see it, that's a lot harder to stamp out than boring negative football.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, play the way we have done the last 2 games, and be 2 or 3 up before they even get a chance to confuse our defence and goalkeepers.
And are you going to be there? Just checking.
I don't have plans to at the moment.
Okay, because Andy, you were, I don't know if Jake's still in the chat, but you were there at Southport first time, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, so that, I've always said, anybody who was at Southport the first time, that is still one of my favourites. I know we've just been talking about an away. That's one of my favourite games, home and away, but particularly one of my favourite away games, just for the atmosphere the dozen of us or so managed to create, really early days. And that's why, as much as I really want to rag on Everton, I kind of got a soft spot for games against them because those two at Southport were brilliant.
But that was an old school stand to be in.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the appeals.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not completely comfortable with where they are now. Zoe, I mean, come on, Jake. Southport, that'd get you going. I knew it. 21 of us, if I'm right, if you counted us, then so be it.
Did Jake have the strings for his flag that day?
Do you know that was the second game that the original Barmy Army flag appeared at. So I'm thinking that there might have been extra string available at that point because we might have had some extra left over from the Barmy Army flag. But yeah, 21 of us. I couldn't begin to think it's probably about right. Zoe, Everton, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
No foam fingers this time. I'm led to believe no foam fingers and no other.
The game's never going to grow without foam fingers.
No other gimmicks because it's not women's football weekend. So just a standard regular football match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We should. I think it'll be good. I think we should win it. And I wasn't at the Southport games, unfortunately. I feel like I've missed out now. I feel like I'm not a true Barmy Army member.
Yeah, far from it. Of course you are.
But I really enjoyed one of the aways that we did. I think it was the first time we went to Wally Hall Park. I really enjoyed it, and that was on the pitch, sliding. Yeah. And I think they always step it up against us, but we give as good as we get, kind of thing. And I do believe that the girls can do it despite the last result. So yeah, it should be a good game. So
you're quietly confident.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more optimistic as the night goes on.
Come on, Zoe. Here's the thing, Zoe. If you're wrong, it doesn't matter. We're not going to say you can't come back on if the result goes a different way. It's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Yeah, in terms of Nat sliding on the pitch, Mark says, you say sliding, I'll say something else. It wasn't the greatest of knee slides. So after the Everton game, we will finish off 2021 at home. Oh, hello, Shane. What are you saying here before I go on? Everton always seems to be one of those teams for us, yet we've only lost once in a dead rubber, I might add. Gosh, yeah. That's a very good point. I think there's just that history and that niggle. And obviously it started with Willie Kirk, and then how many ways can we get a game postponed, and how many ways can we delay a game? So actually that's a really good point, Shane. Yeah, but we still ate them, I suppose, don't we? We finish off at home to Villa. Again, Andy, is that a little bit like the Leicester game, that we could become a little bit complacent, and already some of the players have got their eyes on Christmas break and whatever?
If you want to judge it by the league table, obviously there's another league game before we play them, but at the minute they're only 2 points behind us. If you judge quality on league position, then that should be a close game. Again, it's how we approach it, it's how we play, whether we're progressive enough. But yeah, they're in that group that are 5 points different between 3rd and 10th. Who's to say which ones should be expecting to beat who? We know the names, but it's not quite the same. I think form in women's football probably changes a lot more frequently than in men's. You get good groups of players, you get players moving around more often, and good groups of players get split up. So I think it's difficult to call in that sense. It's difficult to say we're United, they are Villa. But again, I think the group of players we've got and the approach that we seem to be edging towards will be good enough to push us on.
Okay, so you're expecting perhaps a tougher game than some may think?
I think so.
Okay. Zoe, your thoughts on the game? Sorry, Andy, go on.
So I think Villa aren't quite the pushovers that we might see them as, but I think we are probably do. I hope that we follow the signs that we've been shown and improve ourselves rather than Villa be pushovers. I think it's a case of us upping our game and playing like we can.
Okay. Zoe, positive? Not positive?
For the most part, yeah. I think that it's all about, and I guess this is football in general now. I might be stating the obvious, but I think it's all about mentality. It's like you said about sort of, are they already thinking about Christmas and stuff? And I think, some of those games where we haven't quite got the results that we wanted, it's all because of us being sort of complacent, like you say. And that's the worry. We have the quality. I mean, I'm going to say something bold here, and I don't think that we have as strong a team as we did last season. But I think our team has the ability to compete at the top of the league. I think they have. I think they have the skill levels, and I think where we go wrong is mentality. And in those games that we all say should win, I think they sometimes think that, and then they sort of hit the brakes, or don't necessarily push for that extra goal or whatever. And if you think about it as well, we talked a lot sort of last season about Mary Earps and how there was a lot of mistakes there, and discounting what happened at Everton. I still feel like she had the ball in her hands and it shouldn't have stood, but there we go. But this season on the whole, whatever the result, she has made some incredible saves. I feel she's improved massively on last season. And I don't think she's become any more of a skilled goalkeeper. I think it's about her confidence levels, and it's the mentality. And I think that's throughout the team. And I'm hoping, we've talked a lot, I might be going off on a tangent here, but I'm hoping we've talked a lot about internationals. We saw Katie Zellum get her first minutes. Okay, against Latvia. We saw Russo score her first hat-trick for England. And I'm hoping that having so many international players in the team now, they'll have changed their mentality. They'll want to stay in the team, for one. Next year is a very big year for internationally. They'll want to stay in the team, which means that they need every single minute that they're on the football field for United. They need to be talked about for all the right reasons to be able to do that. And so hopefully I'm hoping that they'll go into all these games and into, that game against Aston Villa with that mentality of it's not just about, oh, I can beat this team. Oh, we've got the 1-0. It's fine. I want them to be relentless. And I'm hoping, but that, like I say, that takes the mentality, not just the skills. So, yeah. Sorry.
Relentless is one of Casey's buzzwords, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that it's one of the things that we often used to say we just weren't clinical enough, so we never got the goals to finish a team off. And in a way, that's kind of come back to haunt us. Shane, always good with the stats. Zelly's had more minutes this year for England than Latvia had goals in the game. Cheers, Shane. It's about keeping the foot on the pedal, absolutely going for the second, third, fourth goal. Yeah, and very often I think that's what's separated us from the top, from the better teams. The ability to go for that goal, but also the ability to then get that goal. You think if we manage to get those goals, then the Everton, the Spurs game, they're already very different, and we'll probably be talking about those games at least for the rest of the season. It's something that's bitten us on the backside many, many times, and maybe that's just going to be one of the things that gets us. Coming up to the end, but Andy, interesting. Zoe was talking there about Mary having improved, and it made me think. Player of the season so far awards will be coming up. Andy, who's your tip so far?
It's difficult to look beyond Ella Toon, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd like to. I think last season you would have been looking at Ona Batcher. I think she's been good, but she's not stood out quite as much. Blundell has looked good on the other side. Mannion, I think Aoife Mannion is one that she's the steady one in our defence.
Yeah.
She's
Any guesses?
probably the
Any
most
guesses who
assured one.
Shane wants? No. No. Okay. Mark's going with Tooney, Honor, Hannah. Yeah, same sort of names are coming up. I think you're right, Andy. That steadiness that seems to be in the back line from Aoife, from Blundell. It's certainly been appreciated. So they're your tips. And I know we asked the question before, how many points from these last 4 games for you, Andy?
I don't see why we should be looking any less than 12.
Okay.
I know it sounds strange when 2 of them are cup games, but that points are points.
Yeah, still got to get something for you.
Yep, that's how the cup works now. So yeah, 12 points.
Well, it works now until the FA changed the rules. Mark says he likes Mannion as well. Fiona, Blundell's definitely stood out, surprised most of us. Yeah. Zoe, player of the season so far, maybe? Where would your vote go?
Well, I mean, it's always easy to sort of pick out attackers. I class Toon as an attacker. She's done very well. I think she's showed a lot of composure as well, and a lot more awareness of her teammates as well. I don't think she's as selfish on the ball as well. I think she's become more of a team player, and also got a lot more clinical with her strikes. Some of the goals that she scored have been brilliant. But yeah, people have mentioned Blundell, and that goal against Everton, that team goal, it was so well executed, and it all started from her clearance. And the commentators sort of criticised for it, that was risky. I don't think it was. I think she knew exactly where that ball was going. I think she showed a lot of composure, and she knew, I think that she knew exactly what she was doing with that. And I thought that was a brilliant goal and brilliant vision from her. And I think that sort of sums up the kind of player that she is. She's not just, doing a job in defence, but she is showing awareness of the rest of the team. So I think it's going to be between them two for me. But
okay. And in terms of last 4 games, how many points? What's your tip?
Well, I said I was getting more positive as the night went on. So yeah, let's say 12.
Okay. So people going for a full house here. Just a couple of comments before we tie up. Fiona says Mary's improved as well. Yeah, absolutely. Mark, can't remember who said it, but when we play Spurs, someone said Mannion's the best defender we've got. Absolutely. Mark asked the question, is Zoe a member of the Tooney fan club? Oh, I think that's a very elite group, and I think Jack and Sue have got that membership tied up. But certainly plenty of games for us to go to and enjoy. And Andy's going to be on the bus to Brighton. So can you as well. But yeah, both there on Sunday, both going to be at the Leicester game. Yep. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who's watched, who's left a comment. If anybody wants to check out a copy of the Barmy article, they can go via Twitter, Andy, is that right?
Yep, in my Twitter bio, there's a link to buy it online.
Lovely.
Or if you go into the Leicester game, see me before the match.
Yep, look out for you. And Zoe, people, if they want to have a look at, if they want to read your stuff, what's the best place for them to find it?
thepeoplesperson.com. And I mean, often it comes up if you just type in Manchester United news. So yeah, and also on my Twitter. So that's @_the writers room.
Okay. And also, if anybody wants, I think that they obviously both Andy and Zoe would have been tagged in the announcement for the pod. So if you just want to go back to MUWSC, you can check that out. We're going to be back on, I think, the 22nd, because there's football for the next couple of Wednesdays. Not sure if it's going to be myself, not sure if it's going to be Mark. Might be both of us, but we'll be looking back on the season so far as we head into the break. And also, I know I've talked about it very briefly, we'll be talking about the player of the season so far poll. So plenty to discuss. Andy, Zoe, thank you. Andy, no glitches.
I know, I was quite disappointed. I was ready to step
sorry.
in.
Sorry. On the 22nd, Andy will be hosting. For some reason, my phone's going crazy. So yeah, it might not be me that's anywhere near any of these coming up, but Andy will be hosting. I've decided. There you go. You can have the risk of that. Thank you both very much for joining me. Thank you to everybody who's watched this evening, to everyone who's left a comment. Really appreciate it. In the meantime, take care. Hopefully, I'll see you all before Christmas. If you're at a game, come and say hi. Otherwise, take care, and we'll see you all again soon. Cheers. Good night.